put forward alternative ideas to enable the community to extend economic and monetary cooperation without intruding on the parliamentary powers of member states and without introducing a new bureaucracy which is not democratically accountable. And people who deal with these matters should be democratically accountable, although the right honourable gentleman didn't seem to realise it. Our ideas have been welcomed by many people, among them the President of the German Bundesbank, and I'm sure that as the debate in Europe develops, aspects of stages 2 and 3 of the Delors proposals will increasingly be questioned by others in the community as well. Mr. Speaker, the right honourable gentleman and the mover and second of the Loyal Address spoke about East-West matters. The gracious speech also commits us to encourage reform in the Soviet Union and to give every possible support to the remarkable changes taking place in Eastern Europe. The government warmly welcomes these changes.
Well, I'll take it if it's a point of order.
Courteously said earlier in her speech in relation to a question on the former Chancellor of the Exchequer's explanations, if she would return to the subject. Mr. Speaker, the point of order is this. Should ministers, however powerful and however senior, say that they're going to deal with something in a speech and then not do so?
Order. That's a point of argument, not a point of order.
We dealt with the economy, whose success we have a great deal to thank my right honourable friend, the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, for. Mr. Speaker, if I might now get on with my own speech. The government warmly welcomes the changes which are taking place in Eastern Europe as a great step for freedom and democracy. And every bit as remarkable as the changes is the speed and suddenness with which they have occurred. We very much hope that other Eastern European countries will soon follow the lead of Hungary, Poland, and now East Germany. May I add how very strongly the government deplores the violence used against peaceful demonstrators in Prague at the end of last week, in which British journalists were also hurt. By all accounts, the situation was better last night.
Order.
Main task, Mr. Speaker, in consideration of other honourable members who wish to speak, I would like to complete my own speech on this matter. The government sees two main tasks in the period ahead. First, we must do everything possible to encourage and sustain genuine democracy throughout Eastern Europe. But in the euphoria of the moment, we must not underestimate the magnitude of the task. By genuine democracy, we mean not just the outward trappings, but the underlying substance. Free elections in a multi-party system.
Order! I think the whole House heard the Prime Minister say that she wanted to get on with her speech and that she wasn't going to give way at this point. The Prime Minister...
Mr. Speaker, I don't think anyone has given away more than I have during the course of this speech. By genuine democracy, we mean free elections in a multi-party system, together with all the freedoms that were set out in the Helsinki Final Act. That is certainly not going to come about quickly. Indeed, in some East European countries, to achieve genuine democracy and economic reform may well take years. So great are the changes required. Britain is already helping Poland and Hungary, but we are ready to do more as part of an international effort. Our second task is to enable these great changes to take place in conditions of stability in Europe, so that no country feels its security, its alliances, or its borders threatened as a result of them. We should remember that these changes would not be happening were it not for President Gorbachev's courage and vision. All of us have a strong interest in seeing his reforms in the Soviet Union succeed. Mr. Speaker, these matters were discussed by the European Community heads of government at a very successful meeting in Paris last Saturday evening, at which this approach received wide support. We all welcomed changes in Eastern Europe and agreed that the community should continue to give them every possible help. The particular urgency of Poland's and Hungary's needs was recognised. The European Council in Strasbourg, in just over 2 weeks' time, will decide on the additional help that the community can offer, covering not just financial help, but further food supplies and training. We shall also consider the possibility of extending European community programmes in areas such as technology and education to Eastern Europe. Britain's recent suggestion for looking at the various options for bringing Eastern Europe into closer association with the community will also be studied and discussed further at Strasbourg. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, we agreed that NATO and the Warsaw Pact continue to be the basis for defence, that borders are not on the agenda, and that we will continue to abide by the Helsinki Final Act. Indeed, without NATO and the European community, these great events would surely not have happened. Mr. Speaker, this was an excellent meeting and a very satisfactory outcome. The next step is for NATO heads of government to meet on the 4th of December, when President Bush will report on his meeting with President Gorbachev. Before that happens, I shall be meeting President Bush at Camp David later this week. The reaction of the Right Honourable Gentleman, the Leader of the Opposition, is to see what is happening in Eastern Europe as yet another excuse to weaken our defences by getting rid of nuclear weapons, even though they are a fundamental part of NATO's strategy. It's because we've had NATO, because we've kept defences strong, because we deployed Cruise and Pershing against the Soviet Union's SS-20s, because we convinced the Soviet Union that it could never succeed in intimidating or threatening the West, that we are now witnessing these great changes. Mr. Speaker, times of great change are times of great uncertainty, even danger. We have to be prepared for any threat, however unexpected. As events demonstrate even more conclusively, we are winning the battle of ideas. We must make sure that subsequently we do not lose the peace. Our nuclear deterrent and the collective security provided by NATO remain the cornerstone of our defence. How we react to what is happening now will shape Europe and the wider world for decades ahead. Against the background of a sure defence, our programme set out in the gracious speech of enlarging opportunity, enhancing the quality of life, and improving well-being is the right one for Britain of the 1990s, and I commend it to the House.